So hello everybody, and well done for walking across in the rain. Yeah, it's quite something out there this afternoon. So I'm going to talk this afternoon about the fact that we live in an illusion, that we don't really understand the world around us at all. And I'm going to start with a quote. And I'm going to start with a quote from a bloke called David Dutich. That's something like his name. I'm not very good at foreign languages. And this gentleman is a theoretical physicist. Okay. So David Dutich writes, "Imagination is a straightforward form of virtual reality. What may not be so obvious is our direct experience of the world through our senses is virtual reality too. Our external experience is never direct. What we experience directly is virtual reality, rendering conveniently generated from sensory data plus complex inborn and acquired theories about how to interpret them. We realists, scientists, take the view that reality is out there, objective, physical, and independent of what we believe about it, but we never experience that reality directly. All reasoning, all thinking, and all external experience are forms of virtual reality. All reasoning, all thinking, and all external experience are forms of virtual reality." So, hello from this aspect of your virtual reality. This collection of matter and energy, which responds to the sound, Khemasuri, and presently resides in a location and time and space known by the language symbol Sheffield. I can't keep this up. So I'm just really trying to give you a feel for the kind of assumptions, habits and views that we act on all the time. The ways that we respond to the world that constantly play into our illusions about the world we live in. Before I really get going, I just want to say it is not that we make up or imagine our environment. The world around us does truly exist. But we are constantly warping our understanding by warping the world around us by our attitudes, our views, and deeply held beliefs. Because we do not recognise this, we do really not know what it's like. We cannot see it for what it is. As Dutich says, we never experience that reality directly. The particular illusion that I want to talk about today is that things around us are permanent, unchanging, have continuity, and therefore are predictable and reliable. And of course, this includes us. Because we want to hold on to the things that we desire, we suffer. Because we think we can control the universe because it is predictable, we suffer. Because we cannot bear to be separated from those we love, we suffer. Because we grow old, sick, and die, we suffer. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent. All phenomena are impermanent, not just the unpleasant ones, the ones that we would like to see change. Everything is experience, all the information we get through our senses comes into being and then passes away. Today I want to talk about what the Buddha had to say about the illusions we live by. I want to talk about why it is for our benefit that we work against these illusions and ways that we might do this. What I have to say today arises from a retreat I did at Parlour, which is a women's retreat centre, in February this year, and a solitary retreat I did in April. And so these words come from my wish to understand impermanence more deeply, and a process which has been going on for many years. Impermanence is one of these gateways to freedom, gateways to liberation, from deeply held assumptions, views and habits. So why is understanding of impermanence so important? With an understanding of impermanence, there is a chance that we may find a doorway to freedom, a gateway to liberation. Impermanence, insubstantiality and unsatisfactoriness are known as the three characteristics of conditioned existence, the marks of ultimate reality, and are known in Buddhist scriptures as the lakshanas. Seeing into these are doors of liberation, the way to freedom from suffering. And there is actually no other way of doing this. This is what we need to do. They are the bedrocks of Buddhism and are the basis of all Buddhist traditions. To have a complete understanding and experience of these is to be enlightened, to be a Buddha. From the earliest of Buddhist scriptures, the Dharma Parlour, the Dhammapada states, all created things are transitory. Those who realise this are free from suffering. This is the path that leads to pure wisdom. All created things are involved in sorrow. Those who realise this are free from suffering. This is the path that leads to pure wisdom. All states are without self. Those who realise this are free from suffering. This is the path that leads to pure wisdom. So this is straight Dharma. To understand the lakshanas in this way is to be able to live in complete concurrence with reality, with the way that things really are. And if we can do this, we will experience peace, harmony, equanimity, and great compassion. The Dhammapada says, seek nirvana as the highest joy. When we really understand the world as impermanent and unpredictable, we will live without fear, we will live without anxiety or turmoil, we will stop thinking we can control things, and we can move more readily and go with the flow that is the reality that we live in. And all this sounds very good to me. In this talk I'm concentrating on impermanence as it is most alive, it's most in my life at the moment and has for the last couple of years or so. So it's important for me to talk about my experience and for what for me has been inquiry into impermanence as a method of working against my habitual views and habits. The three characteristics, the lakshanas, are linked and independent. And if there is one that is strong for you, one that really makes sense to you, this is the one that you can work with. My spiritual work in recent years has been a lot to do with death and the impermanence of the body, challenging the strongly and well-held notion that I am immortal. I think I'm less immortal than I used to think when I was in my 20s and on a motorbike. I think some of the things that I used to do when I was young frighten the pants off me these days. So I'm not immortal, and neither are the people around me. So my plan has been to bring this truth of impermanence closer and closer in different ways. The truth of impermanence is so fundamental to Buddhist practice that it is contained in the Buddha's last words. All compounded things are impermanent. With ethical vigilance, strive on. So, how to begin? Well, in some ways, impermanence is not big news, but we do need to learn how to bring it on and make it more real in our lives, and not turn away from the difficult understanding of this truth. A tried and tested traditional way of beginning to understand the way things are is looking at the Dharma through the three levels of wisdom. And the three levels of wisdom are listening, reflecting, and meditating. So we'll start with listening. Listening is not just about hearing someone talk or reading a book. Oh, it contains those things as well. But it is also can be about listening to your life and what it can teach you. We need to realise that our lives, our actual experience, the way our world is around us, has a lot to teach us. And now is a good time to start. We will have to need a little bit of Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. And it's also good to have a friend or a teacher who can help us, because someone who is more experienced in the spiritual life than we are can help us with our misunderstandings, get ourselves out of a pickle when we get ourselves in one, and is a bit essential to making progress. So realising that I'm probably not immortal and desiring to take this on fully, I have actually been putting myself kind of in the way of death. And so this talk is something about that. And this is me learning not to turn the other cheek when death presents itself. And it's a bit of a discussion on the way that I approach death to make it more real for me, so that I can really appreciate that it happens. And it's a bit like when my children were little. We used to have small furry animals, and small furry animals are very good for teaching someone how to love and care for something that needs their attention. And it also is a good way of introducing children to the idea that things die. So having hamsters was fantastic because they lived about 18 months. And having gerbils was quite not so fantastic because I didn't understand when we had them that they lived for 6 or 7 years. That was a bit more of a problem. So it's a bit like treating myself as a child and trying to teach myself about death. So one of the things that I've done over the years that I've always thought of as bringing death more at home to me is that I collect animal skulls. Now, I started collecting them because I find them as objects of great beauty. But they're also a way of knowing that is what one of these days I will become. I will become mere bones. And I thought this was a really good way of doing it and quite effective to have these bones round me at home. Until I went to an art gallery in Bath last year, where there was an exhibition by a man called Robert Lenkovich. And as part of this exhibition, he had an embalmed body of his friend as part of the exhibition. And this was a man who was a vagrant and his friend for many years, called Diogenes, that was his nickname, and had given him permission to embalm him and to keep him in his studio because he too was interested in impermanence and change. But I did find that when I saw an embalmed body, I didn't find it quite as cute as my skulls. So there's a bit of a teaching there in the fact that I probably wasn't quite ready. Somehow it was just too much information. So another way that we can bring a reality of death into our lives is to simply make a will. It really does make you face up to what's going to happen one of these days. And at the moment I'm I'm persuading myself, because I don't find it easy, it is a difficult thing to do, is that I'm on will number 3. So I'm trying to get used to the fact that of what will happen to the things around me and what will happen to the people in my life once I'm dead. So I'm also a part of my listening is through science. So I'm very interested in systems thinking. And one of the things that systems thinking has to say is that everything is in constant flux, and everything comes into being, exists, and then changes, becomes something else, or dies away. So everything we can think of, everything we know about, everything we have in our experience, from neutrinos to galaxies, are all born and die. It's a universal truth, and even the universe will die. I don't know if you've seen Brian Cox's programmes on the television, but he did an absolutely terrifying one on the death of the universe, the heat death of the universe, which we think is what is likely to happen with our scientific knowledge up to the moment. And I just wondered how many people it gave them nightmares, because if they really understood what this was, it would just mean the end of everything forever. Quite something, quite something. So another way of looking at impermanence is that you can do it very kind of generally in looking at the world around you. So I live in Sheffield, and I have a park near me, which is a very nice park. It's just trees and grass. It doesn't have any flower beds or anything like that, so I really like that. So I just walk through the park every day. And walking through the park every day, I see things coming into being, I see flourishing and flowering, and I see things pass away and die. And just being open to it, just being open to the fact that that happens. A few years ago, I had the opportunity of engaging in something quite special. I was put in touch with a woman who had motor neurone disease. I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's a very cruel disease without any cure. And this woman had been given 3 years to live. And she was looking for someone who could help her die well. Her sisters, 2 of her sisters had already died from this illness. She knew exactly what she was facing. And she said to me, "I'm looking for someone to help me. I don't want to die hating myself." And it was quite, I performed her funeral, and I remember saying in her funeral that it was such a gift that she gave to me to be able to do that. To stand beside someone going through that sort of journey, and also to see it in a very particular way. And we did so through meditation. We meditated together in different ways. And Kath wasn't the only one who was preparing for death, because it actually had a really profound effect on me. And I would not have done that on my own. I would not have done that. I needed someone to do that with. And it was a gift, and I'm very thankful to her. So another way of bringing impermanence to mind is actually having perhaps a Dharma text which you feel you can relate to. It doesn't have to be very long. So two of mine which are to do with impermanence. One from the Bodhicharyavatara, and this is: "The body is but an object on the loan. In a moment, life breaks its word." I really like that. It's very kind of direct and no nonsense. And then the Dharmadasa Sutta: "The days and nights are passing relentlessly. This should be reflected upon again and again." You can just say something to yourself when you're awake in the morning. You can say it to yourself before you sit in meditation or when you've finished. It's just bringing it home. It's just listening to that, the voice of reality, if you like. And you can get to know a teaching of something called the skandhas. And the skandhas are the process of impermanence which is within us. We all think of ourselves as having a personality. We all think, I'm like this and I'm like that. You know, you always hear people say things like, "Oh, you'll never catch me doing so and so," or "I don't do that," or "I'll never change. This is what I'm like." And it's absolutely not true. And the skandhas as a teaching show us how that isn't true. So these are, it is a process, a personality, how we see ourselves. It talks about us as a process or flow of events rather than something that's fixed. We're made up of tiny moments of change. And Sangharakshita, who is the founder of the Triratna movement, goes as far as saying that if you don't know the skandhas, you're not a Buddhist. And tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to do a workshop in which we find out what the skandhas are by looking at small stones. So join me if you want to. So that's listening. That's kind of bringing these truths closer to our hearts, bringing these truths closer to our hearts. And the next stage in the 3 levels of wisdom is reflecting. So in all the ways that we listen to Dharma, poetry, recognise our life experiences, all these things can be taken deeper, and this is known as reflection. And this is done with openness and by suspending ideas and preconceptions. The 20th century's then master Suzuki said, "If your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, and in the expert's mind, there are few." So keep a beginner's mind. Be open to all sorts of possibilities. Anything around you. Impermanence is all around us. Anything can be meaningful. So just be aware of the chances that you get in life. Give things time, turn things over in your mind. Keep an open mind and see what happens. So don't be blasé about your experience. Take it on, unexpected things. Just ask questions. Ask questions, but don't expect answers. That's really important in reflection. So we just ask a question and we just wait and see what happens. So a good question with me would be, why was I so shocked at the embalmed man at the exhibition? It's a very good question. There was something very shocking about it, and I don't think it was because... I don't know. It's a good question. I'm still turning that over. So sit down and let that question hang. Something might happen. Not necessarily at that time, but sometime in the next few days or weeks or even months. If something brings you up sharp, don't lose that experience. There's something important there for you. On a retreat a couple of years ago, on the Total Immersion retreat, which in fact Buddhafield run, I just adopted a poem by Ryakin, and it just says, form, colour, name, design. Even these things of the floating world are of the floating world and should be abandoned. And what most took me out of this poem was the fact that everything loses its name. Everything loses its name. It may not mean anything to anybody else apart from me, and that really doesn't matter. So as I was kind of on this retreat and watching, because we were in a field and there's nature all around me, and I could just see how things stopped being what they were. They lost the name we call them. They constantly became something else, or they disappeared. And so if you come across something which is important, just hold on to that and take it with you into your experience. My father died a couple of years ago, and I was with him when he died. And it was one of the most mysterious things I have ever experienced. Where did my dad go? What happened to him? I remember it when my children were born. I didn't do reflection when my children were born. But I remember when my children were born, I just used to look at them and go, how did that happen? And it was not like I knew how it happened. It was just like, so what brought all this together? It's a mystery, it's a miracle. And death is just the same. Life in itself is a mystery. It's completely unknown and extraordinary. So it's very important to take notice of those things and just take them a bit deeper, just to bring yourself back to your things. Where did my dad go? What happened to him? What is life? And there are small deaths we have every day that we can pay attention to. So we wake up in the morning and we're in a particular mood, and then half an hour later we're a different person. And all these things happen all the time. Mood, temperature, hunger, comfort, pain, emotions, all these things change all the time. So just notice them. Every so often just go, what am I like now? And see what you like. And you find out you're not the same as you were. So we don't always recognise change in ourselves, and sometimes we need other people to notice it. Quite a few years ago, I did a sailing holiday with my sister and some of her family. And halfway through this sailing holiday, which I was having a lovely time, and I really enjoyed it, and my sister said to me, I'm really surprised that you're here. I said to her, oh, why is that? She said, because you're terrified of water. And I went, oh, I used to be. I remember being really terrified of water as a child, not that keen as a teenager. Mind you, you're in a boat. The idea that the boat stops you from going in the water. But I just thought, oh, there's something that's really changed about me. That I don't have that fear anymore. And but I hadn't noticed. So other people can let you know these things. So I can see that there's a lot of mystery in dying. There's a lot of mystery in impermanence and change. And part of that response to it, this mystery about it, keeps me coming back to it. It keeps me interested. It keeps me asking questions. So the mystery of it's fantastic. Nothing stays the same. Nothing has a lasting state of being. Nothing even has a lasting name or language or concept. Everything changes. It really is true. And the third level of truth is meditating. The third level of wisdom is meditation. So when we listen, when we take things on, and when we reflect, we are wearing away. It's like just gradually wearing away our habitual and ingrained ways of seeing the world. We can constantly question our illusions and stop being taken in by this virtual reality, these stories that we write for ourselves about permanence. And we consciously question our illusions. And we can move away from trying to wear down these illusions through listening and reflecting. And we can move on to meditating on impermanence directly, as it is in our immediate experience. We can start to turn round and face it. Okay? So we've got brave. We're getting brave here. We turn round and face it in our meditation. And to take impermanence into our meditative life is a major change in our practice. We shift our meditation from being about content, so the breath in mindfulness of breathing, other people and ourselves in the metta bhavana, so that's content. We've moved the process on from being about content to being about process. What actually happens? What is actually happening here? We start to see that everything arises and passes away. It lacks solidity and is not real in the sense that we thought it was. Excuse me, I've got a frog. So we start to see that everything arises and passes away. It lacks solidity and is not real in the sense that we thought it was. And this can be rather shocking. So we need to be able to approach impermanence in our meditation with quite a lot of courage and a lot of calm as well. Permanence may be an illusionary aspect of our experience, but we have such a dependency on this illusion that without an element of clear and sustained concentration, positive emotion, and a touch of fearlessness, we could get overwhelmed. So it's something that you have to prepare for. We need to prepare ourselves for this, as it will entail facing personal deaths as we give up our illusions and our dependency on them, and we will not be the same once we've seen through them. And you may know this as Vipassana meditation. And to do that, we need to have a reliably calm and clear mind, a reasonably reliably clear and calm mind, but positive emotion as well, before we can embark on seeing the principle of impermanence from the inside. And this is because seeing the reality of impermanence will turn everything we know on its head. nothing will be the same. In the Yogacara school, which is an ancient school of Buddhism that no longer exists in the present day, they call this the turning around at the deepest seat of consciousness. The turning around, a turning about at the deepest seat of consciousness. And even that phrase gives me goosebumps. I go, ooh, I wonder what that's like. So we begin to look very clearly into our direct experience of the world, of the breath, and any sensation which arises in us, and notice that it passes away as well. We do this by consistently noting sensation, and then the next sensation, and the next sensation, and the next sensation. This is very intensive and absorbing practice. But we also have to be very open and receptive to whatever is coming out of this intensive practice. And we have to have a balance between working very hard and hanging very loose at the same time. So we're working hard at trying to understand change and arising and passing away. But we don't know what that's going to mean for us. We just have to be open to whatever that teaching is and how it manifests. So we can start bringing the skandhas, these tiny moments of change which we think of as our own personality, into our meditation, and noticing in every moment we are in a state of flux. We are constantly changing. Seeing that is in this very moment of our being, directly, consciously and accurately. The content doesn't matter. What's going on doesn't matter. It just means that we notice the process, we notice the change, the process of impermanence in ourselves. We can do this with focusing on the breath. We can look at every sensation in every moment, each breath coming into being, living in the form of sensations which we can notice, and then dying again, dying as each tiny sensation ends. And by practicing this way, we wear away the illusion of anything being permanent, just seeing that arising and passing away and change is happening over and over and over again in all our experience in every moment. And we have to die a bit ourselves. The constant application of this effort to see things as they are will allow the death of our misunderstandings that are not in line with reality. And our deeply held beliefs and our attachments to them will have to go. They'll have to die too. Sometimes the door to freedom can open up unexpectedly. The momentum of your practice may build up and be so much of a way of life that when you're thinking you're doing something else, you suddenly see the way things are. There's lots of lovely stories about this happening to people. And there is no situation when this can't happen. Every moment is a possibility, and it will take us by surprise. And there's a really nice Zen story about a woman Zen adept, a woman who'd been practicing a long time, was carrying a bucket of water at night, and she saw the moon reflected in the water. And the bucket was a very old bucket, and the bottom fell away, and the water flowed out onto the ground, and the moon disappeared. And she became enlightened. She was just ready. She didn't know her bucket was going to collapse. She didn't know the water was going to disappear. She didn't know that the imagery, the illusion of the moon was going to go too. But it was the instigator of insight. And we just need to know that that can happen. It's a possibility. It's very encouraging. There's I don't know if any of you have read Tom Wolfe's book, The Right Stuff. It was written, I think, probably in the 70s. It's great. It's about the early attempts to put Americans into space and a comparison with the jet fighter pilots of the same time, and who really were the heroes. It's a lovely book if you're interested in that sort of thing. So it's talking all the time about the jet fighters. They're pushing up against the sound barrier. They're trying to fly their aeroplanes faster and faster. And they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know whether their planes are going to disintegrate. They don't know whether they're going to be able to land them. They don't know what it's going to do to them physically in terms of their bodies. It's never been done before. And Tom Wolfe uses this great phrase, which is called pushing the outside of the envelope. It means doing something that's never been done before, pushing the boundaries of our experience and our understanding, an attempt to extend the current limits of experience to go beyond commonly accepted boundaries. So in our meditation, we're doing this. When we do this kind of meditation, we are pushing the outside of the envelope, going to the edge of the normal way of looking at things, and maybe today or tomorrow tipping over into a new understanding. And sometimes we get a really kind of strange feeling that we are on the verge of something else, that there is something else going on, that we are moving into this kind of realm. I'm just going to give you a quote from a guy called Wittgenstein, who was a 20th century philosopher. I don't know much about him. I think he wrote 2 books which were published, and that was it. But he was in the... he volunteered for the war in the Eastern Front in the First World War. And he was about 25, 26, something like this. And he was already a very deep-thinking young man. And the Eastern Front was 2 things. Well, they said this about the First World War. It was boring. He had a lot of time on his hands. And secondly, it was horrific. The 2 went hand in hand, from what I understand. So he's writing in the trenches on the Eastern Front during the First World War. He had great hardship, difficult conditions, and saw brutality in the futility of war, although not much action. And he had lots of time to ponder. And this is from his notebook. And he was recording his thoughts on logic. That was his problem. He was talking about logic. And here he is. He's describing a particular kind of progress that he's making. And stepping into this kind of different way of understanding. Winter is setting in, and once again, no clarity of vision. Yet I am obviously on the point of solving the most profound problems. So much so that the solution is practically under my nose. The thing is, my mind is simply blind to it. My mind is simply blind to it just at this moment. I feel that I am at the very gate, but cannot see it clearly enough to be able to open it. This is an extremely remarkable state, which I have never experienced so clearly as at the present. And I think that kind of moment is available to all of us. We're close to something. We know it's special. We don't know what it is yet. So, like Wittgenstein, we can know strongly that something different is happening. We're getting somewhere. And it's very exciting. We need to just keep going and stay open. Not pin ourselves down. Not think that we know what's going to happen. There's a Celtic tradition of thin places, which I quite like. And these thin places are places where the presence of another world seems close. And I don't know about thin places, but I think of these sort of times as thin moments in my life. It's like there's not so much as there is usually between me and my understanding of the way things are. Moments when I'm clear that there's another way of being and another way of seeing. Moments which bring me close to the truth of existence. And the interesting thing is that at any time, we are both as near as we will ever be from awakening and as far away. It's a paradox, but it's true. And we need to be able to start living this understanding, living and understanding that, and bring it in to our experience, our hanging loose and being open about our experience. And it's sometimes very hard to believe that these doors of liberation, these doorways to freedom, are right there in every moment. In this moment, they're here. Hakuin, who's a Zen master, in his Song of Meditation wrote, "Not knowing how near the truth is, people seek it far away. What a pity. They are like him who in the midst of water cries in thirst so imploringly." So these doors to freedom are here, they're right now, they're in our own experience, in our hearts, minds and bodies. Freedom is not somewhere else, and we can train consciously for this deepest engagement with the ordinary world. This will start with leading a good and ethical life and training our mind through meditation to become both steady and positive. We can focus in on a particular doorway to freedom, which makes most sense to us. Then anything can happen. The Buddha's teaching is both progressive and reliable. I do think that's really important, that we can trust the Dharma, we can trust these teachings. We don't have to leave this world to know the freedom of enlightenment, and at the same time we do need to leave it. It's a mystery, it's indescribable and inexpressible. We die in the sense that we leave behind all that we thought of as right and true, our assumptions, habitual ways of looking at the world. All our views are demolished, and this is freedom. Sangharakshita, who's the founder of Triratna, wrote a description of this freedom in the world, being in the world and not of it either. And I'd like just to end by reading this description. Imagine a day of unfettered inspiration and free-flowing energy. A day in which you are able to be completely true and clear in your communication. A day in which you have felt so real a connection with others that your own concerns cease to loom so balefully in your life. A day in which you never felt that you were hitting your head against a brick wall or getting stuck in a rut. Imagine a day of creative freedom, and then imagine that freedom doubled or trebled and continuing to expand, and you will get the idea of the nature of enlightenment. Thank you.